So it's 2019. It's a new year, which means that around now, people are trying to stick to their New Year's resolutions. Maybe you want to read more. Or maybe you want to cook more often and eat a more healthy diet. Or maybe you want to finally hit that goal of exercising more each week and getting your fitness in check. But if you're anything like me, then you set yourself goals like this each year with the best of intentions, and maybe you even start off great. But eventually, you lose the rhythm of whatever it is that you're doing, and you fail within a few months. But that doesn't have to be the case. You see, when you take a look at them, a lot of New Year's resolutions are based around making or breaking habits. And the good thing is that I think understanding what goes into forming a habit can give you a better chance of sticking to your resolutions and achieving those goals that you've set for yourself. And I want to show you why. But in order for me to do this, I'm going to need some help from a friend called Ammar, who's from a little known YouTube channel that you may have heard of, Yes Theory. But first, let's take a look at what a habit actually is. Essentially, it's all to do with what's going on up here in your brain. Your brain consumes a massive amount of energy. It only takes up around 2% of your body's mass, but on average accounts for around 25% of energy use. Because of its massive energy requirements, it needs to find ways to be more efficient at what it does. And this is where habits come into play. A habit is essentially a behaviour or an action that you perform automatically as a response to some sort of event or stimulus in a certain context. When you're first learning a task or a behaviour, particular areas of your brain are highly active, but as the behaviour is repeated over and over, the activity in your brain both reduces and moves to different locations, towards areas that deal more with automating behaviours and actions. But how does this work? Well, your brain is made up of around 100 billion tiny cells called neurons that form complex networks with each other, transferring electrical signals along pathways that let the brain perform the massive range of tasks that it does. These electrical signals are transferred where the neurons meet, at what is called the synapse. When you repeat an action or a behaviour over and over again, your brain essentially registers it as something that is important, and so develops a stronger connection between neurons at the synapse. As synapses and neuron pathways become stronger, they eventually become more ingrained in your brain and become these automatic behaviours. And this is a powerful thing. Can you imagine how exhausting it would be if you had to relearn or consciously think about tasks that you perform as a habit every single day? By packaging up actions and creating these automatic habits, your brain frees up energy which it can use to focus on other tasks that might be important. And this whole process is vital for your brain. In fact, habits are so crucial that it's thought that they make up around 45% of the actions and the behaviours that you perform once you're awake. So essentially, your life in a very big way is a sum of all of your habits. Okay, so why do I think that it's important to understand this stuff? Well, it shows you that your brain wants to form habits. In fact, your brain needs to form habits as a matter of survival. And the good thing for us is that it turns out that these pathways and connections can actually be changed or altered throughout our lives, even in adulthood, as our brains are constantly seeking ways to become more efficient at what they do by strengthening the pathways that we use most often. And this is vital to understand because research has actually shown that one of the most important parts of actually changing or making habits is simply the belief that it can be done. So now, you can believe it. Now, studies have shown that it takes around 15 to 260 days to truly form a new habit. But what this really means is that there is no simple or basic answer for how long it will take to form a habit, because it depends on a whole heap of different factors, including the person, the habit that they're trying to change or create, and just the situation that this person is in. So what I'm saying here is that you have to accept that forming a habit takes time. And if nothing else, these are the key points that I want you to take away from this. Habits take time, and habits take repetition. Alright, so we understand how a habit forms, and we understand why they're important. But what is the actual mechanism behind a habit in your daily life? Well, it turns out that a habit is made up of essentially 3 basic stages, acting in a cycle with each other in something known as a habit loop. These are the trigger, the routine, and the reward. Now let me try to explain this using a habit that I have that I find really annoying. Every time I'm writing one of these episodes, I reach these points where it gets really hard to piece different bits of information together into something that makes sense. Now I call these moments hitting the wall. I know, very creative of me. These moments can get really tiring, and eventually I opt to procrastinate by unlocking my phone and checking out some piece of social media. In this scenario, the trigger is hitting the wall, which is the thing that tells my brain to initiate a behaviour and go into automatic mode. Turning on my phone and checking social media is the routine, and this is the part of the cycle that most people think of as the habit. Finally is the reward, which in this case is taking my mind off writing and taking a breather. And it's this point, the reward, that tells your brain that this is something that will be worth repeating in the future. And so it strengthens the pathways and the connections in your brain, eventually leading to the formation of a new habit or further embedding a pre-existing one. Okay, now we're at the stage where we can try to figure out how to change old habits or make new ones. Well, first up, it turns out that we can essentially hack the brain's habit loop system and use it for our gain. It's thought that to change a habit, we can leave the trigger and the reward the same, but just change the routine in the middle. So first, you've got to figure out what your trigger, your routine, and your reward are. And for me, I don't like the routine of scrolling through social media in my habit loop. So instead, every time I hit the wall, I've started to go for a quick 10-minute walk around the block. This satisfies my need for time away from writing, takes about the same amount of time as scrolling through social media, and the best part is that by the time I get back, I've usually figured out whatever it was that I couldn't piece together in the first place. Now this is just one approach using the habit loop that I wanted to show you, and there are a bunch of others. But no matter which approach you go with, repetition over a long period of time is still the key. Alright then, that leads on to where to start. Well, my advice, start small and start simple. And start with something called keystone habits. Now these are habits that can have a chain reaction and cause other habits to start to develop. For instance, the simple habit of keeping a food diary can result in you noticing behaviour patterns with your diet and exercise, which forces you to change those behaviours too, which can increase your chances of losing weight, if that's your goal. Now, personally, I found the idea of trying to create a small, simple keystone habit to be an absolute game changer for me. For the past 68 days, I've been doing a challenge called 100 Days of Sweat, and I've been posting about it over on the Aspect Science Instagram. Now this challenge was actually set by Ammar from Yes Theory, and this is where I'm going to need a little bit of his help.
Hello everyone, my name is Ammar and I am one of the co-creators of Yes Theory. About 92 days ago, I decided that I wanted to sweat for 100 days straight. I had never done anything in my entire life with this consistency. I've never done anything for more than 30 days straight. So it seemed like a goal that I was like, I'm just setting myself up for failure. But I realized that it's all about just setting the minimum requirement for you to actually say that you checked something off lower than you think you can. So if you feel like, oh, I can commit to working out for half an hour every day, just half that, do 15 minutes. And that's what I did. My only criteria every day for the past 92 days was to just drop a sweat from some sort of physical movement or physical activity that I perform. Sauna does not count. It actually has to be me doing something to sweat. And my motivations to do 100 days sweat weren't at all in regards to physical transformation or building muscle. It was more about just building the practice of showing up for myself every single day for something that will make my life a little bit better. And that's really the effect. 92 days later, I feel more than anything what I'm feeling is more up here. And like sometimes you feel that your life is just this tangled thread and you don't even know where to start to untangle it. But what I realized is movement and physical activity is a pretty good bet to take on just pulling that thread out, and somehow just other things around it end up untangling it too. So you're gonna be a lot more conscious with what you eat, a lot more conscious for how much you drink or how much you smoke. It really puts you on the right track to go about the positive changes that you would want in your life. I would say that my biggest takeaway is a habit has to be established before it's improved, and that was what I got wrong for my whole life. I always tried to improve a habit that I don't necessarily have. So I would say I want to work out 4 times a week, but I don't even get out to go on a run or do the bare minimum of physical exercise. So what I started with is developing the act of showing up to the gym. It started off with me just literally going to the gym, having no idea what I'm gonna do, because what I've learned is I show up to the gym enough times that then I just go, well, I might as well work out. And then from there, you work out, you start feeling good, you feel a little bit stronger in the following day, you want to go for more push-ups, more sit-ups, bit by bit. It's like snowball effect. So I'd say start smaller than you think you can, because you can only go bigger. I hope that was an effective way of sharing my part of the experience. I'd say if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram @Ammar. Now, back to Tom.
See, the beauty of Ammar's challenge is that it forces you to go through some of the key steps of making a new habit, repeating a behaviour and repeating it over long periods of time. But on top of this, since starting the challenge, I've found myself developing other positive habits, like reading every day, even if it is sometimes only one page. So the simple act of trying to exercise every day until the point of sweat can actually act as a keystone habit that can have ripple effects on other aspects of your life. Give me a sec. That's a bit better. But these tips do not mean that it's going to be easy. If you're going to start something like this, you are going to be running into some challenges, but sticking with it and making it into a habit is possible. I've pretty much only scratched the surface of this really complex topic, and research into all of these areas is still ongoing. But if you're looking to make a new habit or change an old one, hopefully you've seen that it's possible and that your brain actually wants to form habits. So ultimately, I hope that means that you can take away a sense of belief that you can do it. Now, all there is left for you to do is start. Use this information, take the first step. Okay guys, before you go, I want to say a massive thank you to Ammar and the guys from Yes Theory for letting me work on this project with them. I made a shorter, kind of different version of this video for their IGTV over on Instagram, so go and check that out as well. And check out Yes Theory on YouTube, because Yes Theory and the idea behind Yes Theory is probably one of the best things that's happening on this platform, and potentially in the world right now. So go and check it out, and I'm sure you will not regret it. Okay, cool. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.